So by now, I'm sure most of you whom were avid to see Oppenheimer probably have. The movie is incredible, and is a real example of what cinema can be at its finest. Throughout the movie, there are countless phenomenal scenes which include Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, and many more exceptional actors portraying some of the most pivotal moments in all of human history. These scenes range from such as the interrogation scenes of both Oppenheimer and, in a sense, Strauss during his hearings, as well as the obvious Trinity test. However, arguably the most important scene of the whole film happens towards the final third act, that being the inevitable victory speech by Oppenheimer, after the bomb has been willingly used on the Japanese people. Everything about this scene portrays the real effect the bomb had on both the world and on Oppenheimer himself. For reference, in my opinion, this scene is the climactic moment of the film, very similar to how the interrogation scene between Joker and Batman in The Dark Knight, also by Christopher Nolan, acted as an almost climactic event, being as well a decisive moment within the film. To fully understand, I'm going to give a rough breakdown of the scene. It begins with Oppenheimer backstage, with his wife portrayed by Emily Blunt. He is sweatingly smoking away on a cigarette, as we can hear the crowd maliciously stomping and chanting Oppie. He then makes his way onto the stage, accompanied by cheers, drinking, and clapping. He begins his speech after accepting said applauses, and instantly after he speaks, his first line being, "The world will remember this day." He pauses and the background begins to shake, as he stares for a brief moment into the abyss. Then he continues his speech until for a moment he hears a scream and the room goes silent, with the image of people continuously clapping in the background. The entire rest of his speech remains in this weird, ambient silence. He then continues to quip victory-inspiring lines such as, "I just wish we had the chance to use it against the Germans," all to the sound of this weird, silent ambience, the only noises being the shufflings of the crowd. Then the room flashes white. In his mind, another bomb goes off. People's skin starts burning off. Oppenheimer begins looking around frantically, sweating heavily, breathing heavily. Suddenly, the room flashes white. The crowd disappears for a brief moment, and ashes fall from the sky. We pause on Oppenheimer for a brief moment. He's in shock. Cut instantly to him walking through a crowd, looking disheveled, confused, and overtly anxious. Also, interestingly, the crowd's cheers are almost a background noise, being muffled out by Oppenheimer's own thoughts and anxious feelings. As he continues walking, he steps on something crunchy, this being the burnt corpse of a woman. He looks down for a moment, in complete horror. He looks back up and continues walking. He sees the sheer joy and relief on the faces of the people in the crowd. This joy and happiness is contrasted quickly to the blackening mass around Oppenheimer, which is slowly suffocating him, metaphorically and physically, through the frame. He then continues walking out of the building until he finally makes his way outside, only to see a fellow scientist throwing his guts up. Well, that was merely my attempt at redescribing the events within the victory speech, in which by no means did I do it justice. It really is a scene that you need to view for yourself. Now, why is it the most important scene of the whole film? Well, this scene is so important as it acts as the metaphorical moment in which Oppenheimer truly understands the multitude of his actions. The crowd is cheering. Oppenheimer can physically see the enjoyment and relief that these people feel, seeing their war is over, and no thanks to the bomb which he created. Although he can't help but be haunted by the reality of this victory, the mass amount of death, terror, and destruction which he indirectly caused. Yes, Truman, the president at the time, ordered the deployment of the bomb, but Oppenheimer was a vital role in creating it. he can't help but feel responsible. This can be seen by the constant background seismic shaking every time he speaks, almost depicting his uneasiness and representing that he is merely a single moment away from breaking. These feelings of existential guilt and dread are further propelled when he stops for a moment in pure silence, observing the crowd and their reactions, but failing to hear their actual cheers. Now, this for me was definitely impactful. I'm not sure for you guys, but sometimes when you've received very bad news, for a few moments the whole world is silent. It essentially is replaced by this weird white noise that deafens everything else out. This is exactly what Oppenheimer is experiencing. Furthermore, these pauses, screen shakes, his constant sweating, also portray the symptoms of panic attacks and anxiety. People who suffer from anxiety and panic attacks have stated that they felt this scene was perhaps the best representation they have ever seen of it in film. The shaking, the white flashes, the deafening feeling, and the tunnel vision. It's simply a masterful scene created on behalf of Christopher Nolan and an even more performance by Cillian Murphy. Additionally, the constant stomping of the crowd, that unique sound, is not only heard in the victory speech, but throughout the movie. Throughout the whole movie, when events are playing out and or becoming more stressful, we hear this similar sound, the constant stomping of feet. Hell, it can even be heard in the trailers for Oppenheimer. This march in the context of the victory scene is a march of triumph, victory, and joy. However, this exact same march, in my opinion, can also be viewed as not a march towards victory, but as a metaphorical march towards self-destruction. It reminds me greatly of the masterful piece of music which is also in Oppenheimer called Can You Hear the Music? And I mean, firstly, if you have not heard this theme, please go and listen to it now, it is amazing. Anyway, in that soundtrack, the tempo slowly begins to increase to a faster and faster speed until it climaxes. I can't help but feel the ominous stomping sounds heard throughout the movie until the victory speech act as little hints of the coming destruction, slowly building and building through key events until wham! They all come to a climax and revelation after the bomb has been dropped. At that so pivotal victory speech in which Oppenheimer finally fully comes to the realization of his actions, what it is he has done, and the consequences that will follow. In that exact singular moment, he truly does become the destroyer of worlds. This guilt is then even further extrapolated upon when he experiences such hallucinations as the burning victims in the crowd and their instant flashing away, only to be replaced by ashes falling from the sky. This could simply be him once again experiencing and thinking of the guilt and negative impact his bomb caused, or it could also be the realization of what the possible future could look like, when eventually his own creation is used against the people he created it to protect. Oppenheimer stepping into the burned body also represents either of these two. No, represents possibly both of these scenarios. However, what perhaps makes this scene so impactful is the masterful craft on behalf of Nolan, and how it allows the viewer to almost imagine what the fallout of the bomb was, what the Japanese people experienced, and what it looked like after, with obvious reference to the burned bodies, ashes falling, and sheer emptiness. By piquing the interest of the viewer's imagination to imagine the bomb, whilst also portraying Oppenheimer imagining the same sort of images, it establishes this almost surreal connection to Oppenheimer and allows you for a moment to realize and understand what he was thinking during that scene. So, yeah, that was my breakdown and analysis of what I personally deem as the most important moment in the whole film of Oppenheimer. In my opinion, this scene acts as an almost climax to the whole film. The bomb has been dropped, and now Oppenheimer must deal with his decision, his work, and we are there with him to experience the devastating journey of the most important man to ever live. For my regular viewers, this is probably the first time you'll be seeing a different video to my normal Peaky Blinders content. I've been meaning to try and expand the types of videos I make and thought this would be a great idea. Let me know what you thought in the comments. And if you would like to see more videos on Oppenheimer and general movie and movie industry news, I've got some different videos coming up in the next few days. I hope you guys enjoy them. Don't worry though, as of now, Peaky Blinders content isn't going anywhere, and I've still got a few more videos planned to come out. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, consider subscribing and liking. And with all that being said, I hope you have a great day or night wherever you are.